Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mary Bednar. I'm chairperson for the planning committee for the city of Stow. Other council members here this evening, committee members, John Chronic. That's it for the committee. As you can see, we do not have a quorum this evening. That means that we will discuss items, but nothing can be passed this evening. This meeting will be recessed at the end of the time allotted this evening and reconvene Thursday before meeting in order to move anything that needs to be moved along. But there is just a discussion for that this evening. Therefore, we will not be approving the minutes either this evening. We'll move those will be done also on Thursday evening. At the outset, I'm going to turn the mic over to Mayor Drew. She has a special guest here this evening she would like to honor.
Thank you. It's a bit unusual to have this at a committee meeting, but we do have a special guest today. We are very pleased to welcome Mayor Luciano Pucci, and I'm sure that I will pronounce your city incorrectly, so I apologize, but he is the mayor of a city named Conca Casale in Italy. And he is visiting Stow and staying with the Albers family, and he is at the meeting tonight I said he traveled a long way to go to another city council meeting. He probably has his fill in his hometown. But we want to welcome Mayor Pucci and also recognize his efforts. He works with the Winterline Museum in Italy, and it helps preserve artifacts from World War II, as well as work with Americans who served in the war. And part of his visit to the United States, he'll be meeting with some families and working on those projects as well. So we have a welcome proclamation for you and an official City of Stow Doughboy pin. So glad to have you.
Thank you. Good work.
Mayor, would you like to give me the opportunity to say something?
I'm sorry, Jim?
Would you like to give me the opportunity to say something?
Absolutely. Mayor Pucci, would you care to address City Council? Oh, you're great. Mayor Pucci, you're welcome to address our City Council in public if you'd like. Sure, the podium has the microphone turned on.
You know, it's unusual that for me to speak. I was reading the paper and I appreciate it so much because we are working hard to preserve the memories in Italy of the Second World War veterans, because you know maybe Italy was the battlefield, one of the hardest battlefields of the Second World War, but anyway, the memories are not preserved as much as it's been. And my work as a story researcher is to preserve the links from the stories we have in our countries with the families that live in the States, like a family that will be here. And my work as a mayor is to make the people understand that our society, Italian society, free society we live, is coming out from the sacrifice of this man because of the memory. Sometimes in Italy we forget. Sometimes we live like everything is donated from dying, from something that find under a tree. They don't understand that we fought a real dark battle just 70 years old. It's not so many time ago. And so I appreciate so much this paper. I appreciate so much what you are doing, what you say to make me hear the words of your mayor. It's really, for me, I don't know that this morning when Carmela says to me, you have to meet the mayor. I said, why? I was a little worried, this immigration, in Italy sometimes, and I would be proud to, if you would be my guest, because Italy is a wonderful place to visit, but it's also a wonderful place, an important place for the common memory we have with the veterans of the Second World War. So that's all.
Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you so much.
Okay, and actually, Madam Mayor, but I'll let you introduce our friend from Ohio.
Thank you. Council members, you will note that there was an invitation that I put in all of your boxes, I believe on Friday. First Energy has designed an open house on October 17th for municipalities to come tour their brand new center for emergency management. And Joe Faga from First Energy is here tonight just for a minute to kind of give you some more details. We have a lot of staff people who will be coming, our first responders, people from the service department, and Joe wanted to make sure that all of you were invited as well. So Joe can tell us more.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for allowing me to speak this evening. I feel honored to be here because I was born in Italy and I speak Italian, so I look forward to talking to you there afterwards. Anyways, with that said, as the mayor said, I am inviting my two largest cities, my largest in Summit County and my largest in Lorain County, on October 17th. The city of Lorain was also invited, as well as the city of Lorain, Stow, to come to our regional dispatch office. And I'll provide you all with a map of our campus so you know how to get there. We'll provide you with a presentation on our storm restoration process, a tour of our regional dispatch office, and then we'll end with a meal. Should take about 60 to 90 minutes altogether. I think you'll find it informative, and I think you'll be very impressed with our dispatch office as well. So just wanted to please ask you if you can make the time to come. I think you'll really enjoy it, and you'll gain a lot of knowledge on how we deal with power restoration. So that's all I have. Thank you. Any questions or of that? No. And just RSVP to me, and my information's on the invitation, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. This is some more jovial. First order of business we will get to this evening to discuss is a conditional zoning certificate for Stow Animal Hospital Veterinary Clinic at 343 Kent Road. I will turn this over to Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you. This is a request by Mr. Alvarez for a conditional zone certificate to permit a veterinary clinic at 3403 Kent Road. This property is zone C3 and veterinary clinics are conditionally permitted in this district. The building was originally built as a red barn and was subsequently converted into offices for Brandon Heating Company. The building has been vacant for several years except for some recent short-term use. The applicant intends to renovate the front building and utilize the existing parking lot. The existing landscaping will be replaced with new landscaping. They are also proposing to remove the portion of the sidewalk adjacent to the building and replace it with new landscaping. There are 13 parking spaces in the parking lot. Those will remain. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this proposal at their September 10th meeting. If you have any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to actually open this up to council members. Any questions for Mr. Kurtz? I will be having the applicant come up in a moment. You can also ask them questions, but if there's any questions for council for Mr. Kurtz. Okay. Is Mr. Alvarez here? Great. Would you like to come to the microphone and, you can both come up.
Sorry if I represent him?
Sure.
All right.
If he wants you to represent him.
He asked me to, so.
State your name and address, please, and then be sworn in.
My name is Jeff Scapen. I'm at 35668 Avenue, which is in Stow.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Stephen, anything you would like to fill in that Mr. Kurtz spoke on, anything with the development of it, or?
Well, what we've done at this point, we've just done some preliminary sketches, and we've decided that the building actually fits for the needs. And I don't know if most of you have pets, but you've probably been to the Stow Animal Hospital. And so you can have a pretty good idea how he maintains it and how it's always pristine. That's going to be the same concept here. We've looked at a lot of different things to try and make it not look like the red barn. And we kind of gave up on that because it is a barn. Unless we tear it down, it's still going to be a barn, and it makes more sense because animals will be in there now. So we are going to remove the sidewalk and put additional landscaping in there. We're going to remove one of the parking spots and put hopefully some larger trees there and screen the rear building so that when you're driving down 59, it'll be a little more pleasant. And hopefully the rest of the landscaping will really enhance the city. One other thing that came up during the planning commission meeting was that they wanted to know if there was going to be any boarding of animals. And this is not a kennel. It's veterinary. It's strictly, you go in, you talk to the veterinarian, you do the regular visits. There's no kennels whatsoever, unless it might be a one overnight thing if there's some sort of an operation. But that's it. There's no intention for kennels.
A question I have been asked by a number of people is the existing Stow Animal Hospital.
Yes.
Is it going to remain, or is it?
No, definitely going to remain. This is an expansion.
Okay, because I know there are, many veterinarians who do work in that facility, and this is going to kind of be a secondary facility.
It's kind of a satellite facility. All the main surgeries are probably going to be done at the main office, the existing one.
Okay. Is there an outdoor area that animals will be walked, or that it's going to be fenced in, that sort of area for, after?
Yeah. No fenced in area.
Nothing for after surgeries or anything where they may need to walk afterwards?
No, not aware of. He doesn't do that now.
Okay. Just curious. Mr. Urbani?
Besides the actual building that faces towards Camp Road, we have existing buildings. Are those still used for the purpose?
Not in the foreseeable future. So the lease with the cabinet people, I assume will probably remain, but there's no plans for it. And the Red Barn actually has a second floor, so they may have some offices up there as they expand, but they won't be examination offices. That's all downstairs.
Does anyone else on council have any questions? Mr. Staker, thank you.
I have a real quick question. You said you're going to reconvene on Thursday?
Yes.
Do we need to come back for that?
If you want to answer any questions that any residents or anyone else may have, what happens is if we do move it on to council Thursday evening, rules are suspended, we'll vote on that evening, and then you can sign it that evening, or come back and sign it.
Okay. Just checking. All right, thanks a lot. Any other questions?
Good. Okay. Well, there's nothing motion removed, so we will move to our second item of business this evening. The second item is the rezoning of the Marhopper properties. And again, remember, just like with the previous one we just spoke with, there is not a quorum. It will be discussion only.
Excuse me, Mrs. Benner, I wasn't sure whether anybody in the audience had any questions for the veterinarian.
Good question. Sorry. Did anybody in the audience have questions for the veterinary office? Yes, please come on.
I have one question.
No, you need to talk to the office or the microphone.
State your name. Your name and address and you sworn, please.
Right. Enrico Caruso, 36660 Road. Just a
Raise
quick.
your right hand, please, sir.
I did.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
Yes, just a question. How many currently do we have in the city of Stow, either existing or pending, animal care facilities? Whether they be veterinarians or boarding facilities or what? I know there's another one being built up there by Arby's,
Mr. Kurtz, do you have any
up there, and there's others.
information on that?
How many is that total in the city?
I'm aware of it, at least two others, one on Grand Road, and then one on Keystone Veterinary Clinic on Darrow Road, soon to be Darrow and Fish Creek Road. Those are the two I'm aware of. There may be others, but those are the two that I know of.
Does that include grooming facilities as well? I mean, like there's one, two doors over.
Grooming facilities are different than veterinary clinics, so I don't have a number on how many grooming facilities we have, sorry.
Just wondering. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding us, Mr. Devine. All right, this evening, Mr. Kurtz, I will let you introduce the farm properties.
Thank you. This request by Mr. Ron Marhopper for your approval of rezoning of three properties, 1941, 1947, and 1955 Thorndale Avenue, from R3 residential to C3 community retail. The properties are located on the north side of Thorndale Road, east of the Marhopper dealership. There are single-family dwellings on the property now, and together they comprise approximately 1.3 acres. This request was reviewed by the Planning Commission at 3 Planning Commission meetings, May 22nd, 2012, June 12th, 2012, most recently September 10th this year. As a way of background, there were details of the site plan that were discussed at these meetings, and certainly they'll have to be discussed in the future, screening, specific issues. I guess I just want to point out that any kind of site plan is separate from the rezoning, and this is a rezoning request, so that has to be dealt with separately. Planning Commission did consider this application over the past several months. They ultimately recommended approval of this rezoning. They indicated primarily that the advantage to the improvement of the intersection of Darrow and Kent Road was primary in their decision. Staff's position is that it was consistent with the comprehensive plan and that it supported the redevelopment of this commercial area around Darrow and Kent Roads. That was an area of the comprehensive plan that specifically noted that intersection as needing attention. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you. Does anybody on council, committee or council have questions for Mr. Kurtz specifically? Okay. I am going to ask the applicant or his representative.
Yes, it's John Slater, it's Slagter. My address is 1375 East 9th Street, Cleveland, Ohio, 44114.
Swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
So help me God. Okay. Good evening, members of council, also the planning committee of council, in addition to the public. We're here this evening to talk a little bit about and give some background about the proposed rezoning. The property is either owned or under contract. There's 3 parcels of property. If you don't mind, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to turn my back to you. The 3 parcels of property that we are referring to are located along Thorndale Avenue, and Mr. Marhoff, LLC, known as RLN Darrow LLC, owns 1941 and 1955. 1947 is currently under contract. And just to orient you, we've got Kent Road here. Our dealership is currently located here. This is a primary sales area for the dealership. And we're requesting, currently the property is zoned C3, and we're asking that these 3 parcels, which are zoned R3, to be zoned C3. And we'll explain the reasons for that.
Okay, so keep it short. I'm going to have everybody on time because I know there's going to be a lot of people speaking.
Sure.
Since you're laying the groundwork for that, I will give you,
Okay, I'll speed it up a little bit then.
leeway.
First of all, pursuant to your zoning code, section 113708 provides that when public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice permit, you have the ability to rezone property. So zoning although obviously it can be controversial, it's not something that's prohibited by your zoning. And that's why you have planning departments, planning commissions, obviously yourselves, to look at these decisions and determine whether they make sense for you. And we believe that this is one of those situations. Specifically, if we could turn to the first series of photos, I think it's important. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, and this gives you a layout of the current condition of the premises and what we're looking at. This is if you walk out of that sales area and are looking south. The corner down here is basically, this is down Darrow Road, and this is the corner. This is kind of what you see. The next photo. This now you're in that same spot. This is Thorndale right here. Across the street there's this other building, and obviously this is Yukon. The next photo. This is going right down Thorndale. Next photo. And I'm going through quickly. I just want to. Here there's obviously a residential home right on the corner, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Next photo. This is now going down Yukon again to the south. There's some residential homes here, and obviously we have parking here. Next photo. This is looking at basically the building where the sales are and kind of the parking field currently. Next. And then this is right along kind of Darrow Road. And what's interesting is when I met with Mr. Marhoff before the planning committee meeting for your planning commission, he kind of said, John, I want to show you something. We walked right out the door here, and he said, this is going to be grass. And I think that says a lot in terms of what we're going to do and what the investment we're making in the community. And if we could go to kind of the improvement plan. And again, I realize we're not looking at site plan, but obviously we're doing this for a reason, and it's because we want to build a new dealership. There's one actually with this is good. What we plan on doing is removing, after we're done completing this structure, the current sales building. This structure will stay, but up here, everything that had occurred is now gone. And at the primary area parking field will be here. There will be, by the way, no deliveries or openings in the back of the building here. This is all actually going to be above grade. We have Mark Ferguson, our architect, who can talk a little bit about that. There will be parking here, and we'll explain the reasons for it. But that's what we're doing. Here we have green space, which never existed. We have sidewalk connections, which don't exist, and a real nice setback, which, again, we believe is a good plan that makes a lot of sense. It's a good investment in this community. Specifically, this area, as you may know, is identified in your comprehensive plan as the Darrow South Road area, and there's a discussion about what should happen in this area. And specifically, your comprehensive plan says that the city and the zoning and its decisions should support redevelopment of commercial areas around Darrow and Kent Road intersections as necessary to achieve the objectives of the city center. Continue to have a focus on retail services. City investments may be necessary to spark redevelopment. Building setbacks should be lessened, and parking should be located to the rear and side, to the side and rear of structures, screen and buffering adjacent neighborhoods. And throughout your code, and I know that I'm sure there's going to be individuals that get up and talk about the residential impact or otherwise, and that's a comprehensive plan provides kind of a general overall plan for you. You need to make the decisions on whether you think this is appropriate or not. We believe that it is. This would be good zoning practice. Specifically, okay, it's an important location. Obviously, there's not many locations like this within your city. We're not just going into some neighborhood randomly. It's where this business has been for 100 years. Second, it provides proper site improvements, gives sidewalks, site utilization. It provides physical impact, green space, the additional taxes and otherwise. It's an improvement for the city. We believe the city deserves this. This is a $5 million investment. And that $5 million investment doesn't add one single extra parking space. It's not as if he's trying to add another 100 or so spaces, more cars. It actually provides the same utilization. So why is he doing it? His type of dealership, as it's categorized, which is a regional dealership, there are recommendations by the auto manufacturers for this type of region. And he barely meets the minimum standards. In fact, he's 20 spaces short. So he's making a $5 million improvement. Why? For his customers, for his business, and otherwise. It's going to be good for the community, we believe good for the neighborhood.
So we've got, I can't give you too much when I'm going to be cutting other
Sure.
real short.
Okay. Also, the site improvement, I think it's important from a safety standpoint. Right now, there's access to Thorndale. There's been complaints about that. The way that the site's redesigned, you don't have that access anymore. Real quickly, if I could have our architect come up, he can give you
I'll have him come up and
2 minutes on
different
site
speakers.
changes.
So,
Great. And again, thank you for your consideration.
While he's up here, does council have any questions for Mr. Slater?
What alternatives were you looking at on that site, and why did they come to fruition?
Yeah, well, we spent about 8 months on alternatives, just so you know. And Mr. Marhofer could correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you go back to the large site that shows the 3 properties on Thorndale, Mr. Marhofer actually looked at approaching the owner of these commercial properties through a real estate agent did. Also, where that red barn is located, where a veterinarian clinic, we approached them. We actually were told it was under lease, that there was someone coming in, so now we know who that is. We approached this property because it was on the market for some time, and some of the neighbors indicated that, well, if you moved it here, that might be okay. We weren't crazy about it because it, really, it gives you basically about the same distance of what you're acquiring here, and you're really not picking up all the space. It just didn't quite work. Although we were willing to look at it, that was pulled off the market. Then Mr. Marhofer actually approached the neighbors, gave them some alternatives, at least 2 of the neighbors, the Burleys and the Rylands. I spoke to them and their council, and we had a meeting. We also spoke, Mr. Marhofer, with the whole neighborhood, and Mr. Burley and his attorney, and talked about everything that he's done here. There was some discussion about maybe acquiring these parcels, and I know Mr. Marhofer had a real estate agent come and talk to that. I think one of the individuals had a possible interest, the other ones didn't. But the reality is there's been a lot of time to do that 8 months. And over those 8 months, by the way, he lost the incentive. If he would have built this year, he would have had significant financial incentives, which are gone. Substantial amount of money. So, the reality is, I understand it may not be perfect for everyone, but, these residences came in the neighborhood. There's people that have been living here. We believe it's compatible. And what we're going to do is much, much better. This is an old out, I think admittedly it's an old outdated kind of 1960s era construction. And our plan is to change that.
Thank you. Did that answer your question? Thank you. We have the architect for this project. Since this is not a site approval, let's keep it to like 2 or 3 minutes, because really what we just want to look at tonight is the rezoning of this property, why that property is needed for this.
Okay.
Mark Ferguson, 4 Points Architectural, 2050 South Arlington Road.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
First of all, when one came to us to start planning this project here, we tried to develop the way it was. We tried to lay everything out with the guidelines that the Chevy dealership requires for this size of facility. Every time we did it, we kept running short of parking spaces. So that became necessary to either do something drastic, get more land, or build a parking deck. We even looked at a parking deck for Ron. That was very much infeasible. It's a huge structure. It's going to be unattractive, poor circulation on the site, and there's a lot of issues with doing such a thing. So what we ended up doing is investigating what would happen if we came back to that site. As it is right now, we're still short 25 spaces from what the Chevy dealership recommends for their dealerships of his size. So we still have not achieved exactly what he needs, but we've come a lot closer than where we were. And a lot of the reasons why we used that much space is we've come into this, the whole design of the front of the project on Trastevere Road, so that we could start bringing in more of a pedestrian image to it, softened up quite a bit with landscaping and new sidewalks. Took all the issues with the car lot, car dealership off the front of Darrell Road. road so that people can actually walk down through there. Currently, as you're walking north on Darrow Road, we're walking right into the rooms. Just cleans it up, gives it a little bit more breathing room, and helps out quite a bit. So, in a sense, I know I'm restricted on time, but all this has come about because what our plans are is to really start dressing up Darrow Road through circulation and be able to bring in a more softer image to that corner.
What the traffic pattern on
As far as a lot of the traffic patterns, we heard a lot of complaints that there was people that would test drive cars. They come right out of Mr. Marhopper's dealership, go right up Thorndale and then test drive it. Some of the mechanics we were told was doing it, although that's not a policy to do that. So what we've ended up doing is in the process, which will be a step in the future, is to close Yukon. And in doing that, what we're going to end up doing is improve the circulation. We're going to isolate the entry to Thorndale so that it's not connected to the dealership in any way. And in doing so, we're going to make a safer intersection here so that people aren't speeding down through the shortcutting and trying to get around. The intersection of Canada and Darrow up in the northwest corner will be the intersection that people have to use at that time. In a sense, what it does is it isolates the neighborhood, it brings the neighborhood into a more safe condition, makes it more private for them, and becomes a better condition to stay all the way.
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Ferguson, what is the buffer zone on Thorndale?
Right now, we've got some existing trees coming alongside of the existing building right through this area. But we've added, I think, we plan to add, we're going to have to work with us to our arborist in order to get everything finished up. But we plan to add a privacy fence going all the way up Thorndale and then across the backside between the residents.
What's the width of that on Thorndale there? The width from the Thorndale over to that point?
We've got a 10-foot buffer right there.
And across the back is how large?
We got a 10-foot buffer right there.
And that's from the street line over
No, that's from
the
the
sidewalk?
privacy fence right there. There's actually 10 feet between the fence and sidewalk.
Okay.
10 feet of grass between the residences here, and for the property line back, I guess we had 19 foot. And then we've got a 20-foot setback for the parking back here. And that parking is going to be basically keeping stock.
Thank you. Any other question on council or? Remember, this is rezoning tonight, recycling.
It should be for the extra spaces of amount of parking. It's just not enough of it.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody else from the applicant who would like to speak? Mr. Kurtz, did you have anything you want to add?
This time.
Great. I will now open it up to anyone in the audience who would like to speak. Remember, we're looking at a lot of people who probably like to speak, so what I'm going to ask is if somebody else has already said it, you can even say, I ditto what so-and-so said and add to it. Obviously, this is going to be discussed for a little while, so we'll have time to speak. I'm actually going to ask Ms. Oh my gosh, it just went out of my head. To go first, because I know you've been speaking with and for a lot of people, so you may actually cover a lot of points that some others, so maybe we'll get a lot of the issues talked about.
Cheryl Timchenko, 1970 Thorndale Avenue, Stow.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
I do. I'm not going to bore you and repeat everything that you already know. I'm just going to try and bring some other things to light here. I think all of us are wondering if Planning Commission has done their due diligence and researched the effects of this expansion, and have they addressed critical items. We don't know. We haven't received any research stats or anything like that. Do we know the traffic research on the effects of closing Yukon? What are are the actual benefits to the city with allowing the proposed expansion? Does anyone know exactly what GM is requiring? Mr. Slater just mentioned that GM has recommendations. He didn't say requirements. I'm wondering. Marhofer stated that the square footage of the new building is approximately the same as the current one, and that the proposed plan reduces his parking by nearly half, actually 25 spots less than GM's recommended amount. Marhofer said he doesn't know if it will add jobs. We're wondering, are the aesthetics the only issue? He also stated that the vacating of Yukon was necessary because of utilities on the street that would be difficult and expensive to reroute. It's difficult and expensive, not impossible. Is it a money issue? Has any member contacted Stow Glass or State Farm or a Kent Road property that Marhofer's mentioned he's looked into to see if they're willing to sell for a reasonable price and not lowball for the sake of being able to say that he's approached them? There's 9.6 acres available at 3878 Kent Road for $148,000. I spoke with the listing agent today and asked if there would be any issue with a dealership being there since it's across the airport. She's not aware of any. If my calculations based on tax records of its current location is correct, this is more than double the acreage she has now. The old Carter Lumber location is for sale and offers over 5 acres and is the zoned commercial highway and a much more suitable location for a dealership. There's 6.5 commercial acres available on Steeles Point Drive near Route 8. There are 6 commercial acres available at Fish Creek and Stow Road. There are 7.4 acres available on Hudson Drive near TGI Friday, whose marketing remarks tote that this is an ideal site for an automotive place. There are other viable options. Some are less expensive than the 3 homes he's already purchased. It's up to you, our officials, to protect your neighbors. We had a reasonable expectation when we purchased our homes that the city would protect the integrity of our established neighborhood and the value of one of the largest investments we make in our life. The proposed expansion, which would encroach halfway down Thorndale, is not for the greater good, it is for the good and convenience of one. At the end of the last planning commission meeting, we were disheartened when one of the members stated, if this expansion is not approved, Marhofer has these 3 Thorndale properties for no reason. It's a slap in the face. This shows the lack of compassion that our neighborhood's being given. Why hasn't one member mentioned the fact that these 3 homes were acquired by Marhofer prior to city approval? Why does the planning commission feel this member has to be concerned with Marhofer being stuck with these properties? Why did Marhofer feel confident the city would approve his plans as they are, so confident that he purchased the homes before approval? Where is the plan B that was asked for previously? All we get is that those options don't work.
Just a few more seconds. I gave you a little extra.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Marhofer knew that there was a neighborhood behind him when he just owned the little pie shape on the corner. It was his decision to expand and go across Yukon. Moving when you've outgrown your place is a cost of business, and I hope that it doesn't fall on residents. Thank you.
Would you like a copy? Does she have a copy of your letter that way she can? Has anyone else who would like to speak on this issue?
My name is Terry May. I live at 3425 Margaret Avenue.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
The first thing I'd like to say is your comprehensive plan does state that the city will limit future, and this is something that the city put out for the people of the city. The city will limit future retail rezonings unless the benefits to the city are clearly demonstrated, and the surrounding land use pattern is predominantly retail. It is not. There are 3 residential homes there. Future development should occur in locations and in a manner that minimizes adverse impacts on existing residential areas, particularly avoiding incompatible land use relationships and minimizing an increase in traffic on local as well as major residential streets. I beg to argue. I think the closing of Yukon will dramatically increase the traffic on Thorndale because you're going to have people going up Thorndale, cutting through an elementary school parking lot to cut off the corner. What you're doing effectively is endangering the lives of those children at that school. If this does happen, I really would appreciate addressing that fact that there will be people, because there are people that cut through there now. There were people, when the intersection was closed, it was utter chaos with people trying to cut through there. I realize that there won't be as much traffic, but there will be more even than what there is now. So that is something you do have to address. I'd like to ask all of you, have you visited my neighborhood? I live at the top of the road. I sit in a higher elevation. My front porch overlooks the front yards of all the houses down the street, down to Mahafer. I see nothing of Mahafer. I see nothing of the intersection because of the trees and the foliage that are there. You remove those homes and that foliage, and what you are doing is bringing that intersection right into my front yard. All the noise, the dirt is right into my front yard because what you've done is remove the buffer. I will look right down into the parking lot. And I'm going to be 3 houses away. And then you've got the people that live right next door or across the street from it. I invite you all, come sit on my front porch. Look and see what I'm going to see if this happens. Please come sit on my front porch. Okay, I would like to read something from the minutes, planning minutes, something Mr. Kohlmeyer said at the planning meeting. He said, this is actually from the May 22nd meeting, 2012. He said, I have some problems with rezoning existing residential areas to commercial. I think the residents here have a legitimate concern about their property values. I would be too. I would like to see Mahafer thrive. And by the way, none of us are questioning or saying we don't want Mahafer to thrive. None of us are saying we want Mahafer to leave Stow. It would be a benefit to have him improve his property. It just shouldn't be at our expense. At the devaluation of our properties, it shouldn't be at our expense. I would like to see Mahafer thrive in Stow, but I have a real problem with rezoning existing residential neighbors and sort of encroaching into the neighborhood more. I think that is problematic. I think people who live in a certain neighborhood have a right to certain expectations when you buy your property. If your value is being diminished, I think that is a legitimate concern.
Thank you. That's all. I have other people who want to speak.
There was another plan presented at the planning meeting that he could build without taking those properties. Look at the planning meeting.
Would somebody else, if somebody else would like to speak, and they can bring that up also.
I'm Charlie Hanault from 1934 Thorndale.
Your address before you give, sorry, raise your right hand. Solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Well, I would just like to simply say that when you look at this, and look at the number of properties affected by the one development that's going on, and I think that it's unreasonable. I think that it's slanted too much towards the individual as a business concern, and it infringes upon the rights and the properties of the landowners that are around here. And I think it's pretty obvious from the number of people that are objecting to this that perhaps it shouldn't be accomplished at this location. As the agency has to be enlarged, maybe it could be done someplace else. But I think that the property owners do have the right to try to keep the neighborhood nice and to keep the properties up and to keep them a civilian, so to speak. And it seems to me it's a rather simple infringement upon the landowners there to have this rather nice but large industrial development. And then gradually, if you look at the future, probably impinge upon the quality of the neighborhood. Right now, the neighborhood enjoys a good reputation, good quality. People are interested in their homes. Seems obvious that with the added size, added noise, and the added person traffic that's going to go through there, the real estate's going to decrease in value. And when I counted on the map up here, it was something like 13 to 15 immediately that would be progressively affected almost immediately. And if you look at the total around there, once the others are affected, you're looking at 33 properties to be affected for one man to develop a better agency. And I like Mr. Marhofer. He's done lots of good things for Stow, and I have no objection to him being a good businessman, but I think that this is an infringement upon property owners. I object to it. That's all I have to say.
Mike Cosman, 3545 Williamson Road.
Raise your right hand, please. Further the testimony you're about to give is true, so help you God.
Yes.
This is only going to be 3 minutes, correct?
Right.
Sorry, these aren't really.
That's the current site plan.
Can you pick up the mic?
That's the current site plan that was introduced at the last meeting. This is, I went to the GM website, and it's really a good website. They have plans for it, they have specs for the dealers. I think this is close to the size of the dealership that what Mr. Morrow was planning on doing. You go to number 3, please. This is, I think, what the lady was referring to. I brought this last week. What I did was I took a satellite map of the current property. I overlaid the previous slide to it. We talked about it at the last meeting. And what I was trying to do, I do space planning for a living and layouts. And the point I was trying to make is there's an infinite number of ways to lay things out. And everyone was asking for a plan B. And we've been told there's no plan B, but we haven't seen why. And I understand what the architect's trying to do, made the point that there's utilities under Yukon that can't be moved. Mr. Marhoff made a good point that during the construction, he wants to stay in business, which makes perfect sense. But the whole point of this is, and I'm not an architect, but I've done enough layouts over my lifetime that I know there's a lot of ways to solve the problem while it's still on paper. And go to the last slide, please. This is also off the GM website, and what I found was, like Mr. from our office attorney said what GM's recommending, but what I found, there were 8 different sizes of dealership buildings. So is it required that it builds a building this size, or are we able to go with something that's a different size? And if you read can you scroll out the bottom, please? If you read the line at the bottom, it says, total building and land square footage does not include provisions for locally inundated setbacks, easements, retention ponds, etc. So is there flexibility there? I'm not against Mr. Maroff. I bought vehicle structures in our great business. I'm all for the expansion, but the neighborhood too. One of the things that interests me in the last meeting, the planning committee would ask the people from Thorndale who got up to speak, didn't you know there was a car dealership there? Well, yeah, they did, but they didn't know this was coming. I guess my question would be, Mr. Marhofer, when we bought these 3 properties, didn't you know these were zoned residential? Thank you.
Perfect. Just so everybody, just to kind of get some terms down, this is planning committee, that's planning commission, so volunteers, so just so you know, there are 2 different, one's a commission and one's a committee. Do we have anyone else from the audience who would like to add this evening? Yes, sir.
My name's Doug Burley, 1969 Thorndale Avenue. Yes. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been addressed by some of the other residents. I'm just going to be real brief here. Specifically, what we're talking about tonight is rezoning. And so let's look for a second specifically at what you guys are being asked to do. What they're asking you to do is to extend that.
You're going to have to talk into the.
I'm sorry. It's to extend
Take that out.
the existing commercial area into the neighborhood, the area that's outlined. Okay. What they're asking, or what they want to do with that property is what we really need to look at. This isn't a commercial expansion that's going to add storefront, going to add jobs, going to add more business. What they want to do with those 3 properties specifically, if you look at that site plan, is park cars there. And so to put it in context for all of you, what I'd like you to think about is think about your neighborhood. And then imagine that the 3 houses across the street from you are flattened and they park a whole bunch of cars there. Or the 3 houses next door to you are flattened and they park a bunch of cars there. Because they keep saying, well, we're going to add, all this green space and all, and make it look better. But like I said, it's not expanding anything commercially. It's not adding more jobs. It's not adding more business. They said they're going to keep the same number of spots or even less than they have right now. All that they're asking you to do is to flatten some houses and give them a place to park cars. And going back to what Carol said earlier about all the other commercial property that's available in this city, I think a lot of those places would be a much more reasonable place if all we're going to be doing is parking some cars than flatten half the neighborhood and park them there. So that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you.
Does anybody else like to speak on this? Members of council, do you have anything you would like to add right now? And Ms. Reedy actually has a letter that needs to be read into record.
I did receive 2 letters, one from Mr. Ganal, but he was here to speak, but I will attach the letter to the minutes. I did receive an email from Mark Ryland at 1961 Thorndale Avenue. He writes that I regret that my fall teaching schedule does not allow me to attend this meeting in person, but I want to assure that my continued voice of opposition to this proposal is heard publicly. As I indicated to the Planning Commission in my last statement, Mr. Marhofer has never sincerely approached the residents of Thorndale with any reasonable compromise. He was encouraged to reach out to the residents, and his initial response was to have his lawyer contact only 2 residents and offer them money to step aside and discontinue any further opposition to this project. This has never been about 1 or 2 people, but an entire neighborhood and street. This has never been about money, but a principle and quality of life. Accepting money and setting aside one's convictions is tantamount to accepting a bribe or hush money. We were unwilling to do this, and criticizing this decision, which some of you will undoubtedly do, I feel I would be very unwise. As elected officials, I would think you would actually applaud this act. As a voter, I would think that hiring of an individual who holds an office representing the people who are unwilling to compromise their principles for personal gain. Perhaps that logic and these principles escape some of our elected officials. To convert a substantial portion of the neighborhood into commercial property and eliminate a significant amount of green space for the purposes of a parking lot for overflow inventory vehicles is an atrocity. And you know, if this were happening in your neighborhood, you would oppose it. This is particularly saddening when there are options available. All may be more expensive for this expansion and improvement. I would continue to stress tabling this project as presented and seeking better, less intrusive options. General Motors does not appear to be forcing such requirements, so why should you be granting this dealership more than he actually needs at the cost of the neighborhood? This does not sound like a good representation of the people to me. Or again, I do ask this principle not apply to the city and its officials. One final comment: after watching the video of the Planning Commission meeting, I feel members of the Stow Planning Commission owe several of our residents an apology for the verbally abusive manner in which they treated when they expressed their opinions regarding my apartment.
Rather than, you don't need to read, he was here. You don't need to read the other letter?
Mr. Hinaldo already spoke.
All right, then actually we are going to make a motion to recess this meeting in order to open it back up on Thursday evening. We don't have to vote unless there's more to move forward or anything. Guys, oh, I can't. Yes, sir, I can't. Can I just recess on my own?
Yes, you can.
Let's say, because I can't even vote on the recess.
I would like to suggest that we establish a time, and based on what I know, I think is coming up, I think 6 o'clock would be an appropriate time to have your planning meeting start on Thursday.
Okay, then we will recess this and start at 6 o'clock on Thursday evening. Mr. Probonic, sound good with you?
That's fine.
All right. Thank you very much. In that case, we will recess and move on to next meeting.